He threatened 100% tariffs on the bloc of countries known as the BRICS, right? That's Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. But they've added a few more to it. So we can throw in Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, and the United Arab Emirates. Now, if they try to replace or move away from the U.S. dollar, he's going to throw a tariff on them, right? He says the idea that the BRICS countries are trying to move away from the U.S. dollar while we stand by and watch, well, it's over, Trump wrote on Truth Social on Saturday afternoon. He continued, we require a commitment from these countries that they will neither create a new BRICS currency nor back any other currency to replace the mighty U.S. dollar, or they will face 100% tariffs and should expect to say goodbye to selling into the wonderful U.S. economy. They can go find another sucker, he says. There is no chance that the BRICS will replace the U.S. dollar in international trade, and any country that tries should wave goodbye to America, he wrote. Replacing the U.S. dollar has been a goal of the BRICS group for a few years now, some years now, actually. But it's been previously thwarted by a lot of infighting among the various countries that have signed up to it. Now, lately, I also think lack of action from our current administration has been seen as a tacit green light to kind of move away from the dollar. I don't like that. So we thought we'd get our next guest's take on this. Please welcome into the show, Rebecca Walser. Rebecca talks about it a lot, so she was the perfect person to have on. All right, what are your thoughts on what President-elect Trump had to say and what these BRICS countries may or may not be doing?
You know, Scott, hallelujah that we finally have a president of the United States elect that is addressing the fact that the multipolarity is upon us. In other words, the unipolarity of the U.S. dollar in the West as the sole reserve currency of the world is over. And finally, President Trump-elect is acknowledging that they are, in fact, intent on dismantling the dominance of the U.S. dollar. He said this is their intent. And thank God he said it, because you've never heard that out of the Biden administration. You've never heard that from the Main Street News. In fact, if anything, we've heard, oh, no, Saudi Arabia is not really a part of it. I will call wrong on that. They are attempting to play both sides, but their central bank is a part of Enbridge. Enbridge was just turned over by the Bank of International Settlements, or in the process of being turned over to China, for the BRICS nations to just take it and run with it, because the Bank of International Settlements is tied with the West, obviously. So, and the World Bank and the United Nations and all of these things. So Trump is finally articulating out loud that, yes, this is a threat. And Scott, can you believe that that is something that we actually have to celebrate, that we're acknowledging now the threat that this poses to us, because somebody has finally actually articulated it. And that's how weak this administration has been on dealing with this BRICS bloc and what they have done over the last 4 years, especially with Enbridge. And so because of Enbridge, Scott, I will tell you that, unfortunately, President Trump, it's too late. It's not going to be stopped. He can absolutely have an impact. He can do things to speed it up and make this happen even faster with the tariffs that he's threatening. But I will just tell you, Scott, that we are no longer in unipolarity. We are in multipolarity. It is here. It is moving forward with a vengeance. And between the Belt and Road Initiative and everything else that China has done to prepare themselves to be a global currency superpower, along with the block of nations that they're pulling with them, it's just too late. Now, can he slow it down? Can he say tariffs are going to be, I mean, look at Trudeau coming from Canada on Friday to go talk to him, because his threat of tariffs, we know the Mexican president has already said no more migrant caravans through Mexico. Listen, this guy knows how to talk the strategy and leverage world leaders, and he understands that it's the pocketbook that America still ultimately controls and can and will affect our policy through that. But Trump knows that he has to act fast, because this BRICS bloc is so far advanced, and we won't even acknowledge it as a country. If we can't acknowledge it, how can we fight it? It's impossible.
So real quick, to the folks that are watching this show, why should we be worried about the BRICS trading in another currency?
Because it completely undermines the ability and the strength of the U.S. dollar. So let me explain to you. When you see that a house that you bought, 10 years ago for $300,000 is now $785,000, that is not because the cost of foundational concrete and wood and roofs and shingles has gone up that much in the last 10 years. That is because the dollar has been hyperinflated. We certainly hyperinflated it in 2020. When we produce about $10 trillion between fiscal and monetary stimulus. Yes. So what happens with the U.S. dollar as the world reserve is we export that inflation to everybody else by making them buy our dollars. When we no longer have the ability to make them buy our dollars, We are eating our own dollars. We are eating our own inflation. You think this inflation that we've seen under this administration has been bad? Just wait until the U.S. dollar is no longer exporting it to the rest of the world.
There couldn't have been a better way to put it out there. So that's a great way that people should realize what it means when we're not exporting our dollars, or at least our inflation, to others, because when we have to start eating our own inflation, that's when you have an economic death.
It's the death of the dollar, Scott. At the end of the day, we are hyperinflating. We are going into a debt crisis bubble. Thank God, just Trump's comments alone and his hawkish appointments to the economic side of the House is basically making the yield come down and saying, okay, we're not going to be hyper-printing this money like this Biden administration would have, or maybe a Kamala Harris administration would have. But it doesn't change the fact that we've already gone down so far down the de-dollarization road globally, and Trump's got his work cut out for him.
Yeah, it's a big job, and I think you're right. And I think the hard part too, real quick before we go, is how does he monitor that? How are they spending the dollars? It's going to be hard to get your hands around. Are they in breach of some sort of agreement, or what kind of agreements? There's a lot to unpack there. But man, you did a fantastic job. I'm putting this one out. This is a great interview. Thank you very much, Rebecca.
Thank you, Scott.
Love having you on. See you again next Monday. Rebecca Walser. She's with Walser.